Also, as a reminder, for more Microsoft webcasts, you can visit microsoft.com/webcasts. And again, I'd like to welcome everyone to today's Microsoft Office System webcast, Tips and Tricks to Get You Started Using Microsoft SharePoint Products and Technologies. And now, without any further delay, I'm going to turn the floor over to today's presenter, Evan Archila.
Great. Thank you, Tracy. I want to welcome everybody today. This is Evan Archila, and today's webcast is Tips and Tricks to Get You Started Using Microsoft SharePoint Products and Technologies. Before I dive into the presentation today, I wanted to just say a couple of words about this presentation. We've had a top 10 tips for SharePoint webcast in the past, and some of the feedback that came out of that was that there were a lot of people that were new to SharePoint, hadn't necessarily used these tools before, and that they might appreciate a more basic view of SharePoint, what it is, and how you can get started just navigating and using some of the tools here. So I want to just be up front. This is definitely a level 100 course. So we're going to basically start with SharePoint navigation. We're going to move through how you would create a site and some of the different things that you can do with document libraries, lists, and other things. We'll touch on some Office 2007 integration points, which will kind of give you a little bit more of an advanced look of some of the things that you can do in terms of bringing your SharePoint knowledge over into your Office knowledge and vice versa. We will also have later on in the fall a level 2 to 300 version of this webcast, where we'll take what we've learned today and kind of dive a little bit deeper, not in terms of necessarily harder things to do, but just touching a little bit more of the advanced scenarios and some of the other things that you can do with SharePoint. So I hope between these two webcasts it'll help people to understand where we're going with this technology, what it can do for you, and what you can do with it, mostly out of the box with what I'm going to show you here over the next 45 to 50 minutes or so. So without further ado, let's just move right on in to the presentation. If you've heard about SharePoint before, we'll touch on the different SharePoint products and technologies on the next slide. I do want to make sure that you understand that what we're talking about here is what we consider an information worker set of technologies. Information worker is just Microsoft's way of talking about you and me as we exist as everyday business workers. So how do we get access to the information that we need? How do we collaborate with other people? And as you're probably familiar with, Office 2007 or the Office system is Microsoft's group of products that are really targeted to individual and team productivity. So SharePoint certainly has a place in the Office system. We'll talk about some of that messaging today as we kind of move through the presentation. Really, the SharePoint play we're going to talk about today is a lot about working together more effectively, about enabling you to collaborate with other people, have central locations for storing and working on documents, but certainly the other elements here in terms of process management, content management, that's a big piece of SharePoint. Getting more out of your information. On our next webcast, we'll probably dive a little bit into Excel services and some things like that. But this all works together really to drive productivity and help people to get more done in less time, better results faster. You'll hear us talk about that a number of different ways. What exactly is SharePoint? Well, there are basically three times you'll hear us mention the word SharePoint. And let me just kind of build one of these on top of the other. Windows SharePoint Services version 3.0 is a feature of Windows Server 2003. So you can think about Windows SharePoint Services, or what you'll hear me refer to as WSS, as something that is part of the operating system. It can be upgraded individually. So a good example for you would be something like Internet Explorer. Internet Explorer is an integrated component of Windows, but it can also be upgraded individually as time goes along. Windows Media Player is another example of that. So from the server side, if you have Windows Server 2003, well, WSS is a feature of that, and it can be upgraded. What we have now is version 3.0. That's the version of WSS that released with at the same time as Office 2007. So what you're going to see today is that particular version of Windows SharePoint Services. Now, if you're licensed for Windows Server 2003, you're licensed for Windows SharePoint Services. It does, however, require a separate installation. It's got to be installed and deployed by IT within your organization. So you may be licensed for it and you may not yet be deployed or actually using it. So I just want you to be aware of where it lives and how it plays. Now, what it does for you is it serves as a platform for collaborative applications. It provides a framework for document management, and of course it's a great tool for storing and sharing documents. So you can think about this as kind of a replacement or the next evolution of a standard network file share. If you're still using file shares to store documents, you're going to find that using a SharePoint Services site gives you a whole lot more capability, a lot more flexibility in terms of how you store and work with those documents. So you can have WSS running within your organization, and if everybody today went out and after this webcast said, well, I want to have a team site, so let's go create a team site and let's store documents. Well, what can happen over time is you can have a lot of these sites spring up throughout the company, and they're all kind of their own thing. They become basically these individual silos of information throughout the company. What we really want to do is take this foundation and give you a way to be able to bring it all together and to enhance it in a number of ways so that it becomes this central point of interface or access into all of this information. That's where you see Office SharePoint Server 2007 come into play. This is an application server that can live on Windows Server 2003, and it basically takes that existing WSS foundation and builds upon it and expands it in a number of different ways. It is a portal solution, so it first of all can take all of those different websites and bring them together under a single portal interface. We'll talk about that today. Enterprise search functionality, so it makes it easy to find not only the documents within that SharePoint environment, but also people or expertise that you might be looking for. It brings in a number of different capabilities that we'll talk about, probably not as much today as we will in the next webcast, but form services, Excel services. I will show you today an example of a slide library, which is a way that SharePoint Server can build on top of WSS to give you some additional library and list capabilities, as well as workflow functionality. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to that section of the webcast. So you want to think about WSS as the foundation, and you want to think about Office SharePoint Server as an application server that kind of builds on top of that foundation and really leverages all the pieces that are available there. Now, we're not going to talk about SharePoint Designer today, but I want you to be aware of it. SharePoint Designer is essentially, you can think of it like you would think of Front Page for SharePoint. And let me just kind of qualify what I mean there. Front Page was a web technology for building websites that Microsoft produced for a number of years. They no longer make that product. It was discontinued. It was not revised for 2007. Instead, Microsoft basically built from the ground up a new web editing and web creation tool, and they called that Expressions. So you'll hear Expressions, Web Expressions. There's a number of products in the Expression line. It's not necessarily an upgrade to Front Page in terms of the technology, because it's essentially a different engine. There were a lot of customers asking for things that Front Page just couldn't do, and so Front Page, the engine, was discarded and a new one was built from the ground up into these expression tools. What you have with SharePoint Designer is essentially the engine that was built there for the expressions tools, but we're also adding to it capabilities for building, designing, and editing SharePoint sites. And so if you want to be able to build your own custom workflows or do site editing within a SharePoint environment, SharePoint Designer will allow you to do that. It's basically the best of the expressions tools plus the best of what you'd need to work in a SharePoint environment in one product. So you'll hear us talk about it as an upgrade to Front Page from a licensing perspective for business customers, in particular those that have license agreements with what we call software assurance. But it is a different engine behind it than what was available in Front Page. It's much improved over what that original product was all about. So I want you to be aware of it. We're not going to dive into it today, but it is a technology that's out there to help you. What are we going to cover specifically today? I want to really focus on three key points. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about just the SharePoint portal in general. How do you get to know this portal? How do you work around it? And I'll show you some of the navigation aspects of SharePoint, of a SharePoint environment. Now in today's demo, I'm running Windows SharePoint Services 3.0 and I'm running Office SharePoint Server 2007. So you're going to see both of those products in play here, one building on top of the other. We're also going to talk about creating and customizing a SharePoint team site. And we'll also look then at working with shared documents and some of the ways that we can basically work with documents on a SharePoint site, create different types of document workspaces, use the shared workspace task pane within our Office applications, number of things that we'll do there. So let me share out my desktop for you, and I'm going to launch basically what's called a virtual PC. This is a way that I can show you multiple operating systems on the same computer. So give me just a second here to put this together for you. And I want to make sure that my resolution is exactly what it needs to be for you to be able to see this demo. So let me just do a couple of things quickly here. And just one second. I'd really like to show this to you in 1024 by 768, which is a little bit dumber than the native resolution that my laptop likes to display here. So I'm going to do a couple of things to fool this. Tracy, can you please tell me if you can see everything okay? What you should be looking at right now is basically Internet Explorer.
Yeah, actually, Evan, it looks like we hopped out of your screen sharing for the moment, so we need you to go back in.
Okay, one second. Do you see a demo slide right now, Tracy?
I do see the demo slide.
Okay. I'm going to just jump right back in here. Let me try this resolution one more time.
Okay.
Are you able to see Internet Explorer?
It looks right now, actually, the screen is not refreshing.
Okay. How about now?
I haven't refreshed for us yet. I'm going to go ahead and put the audience back into music while we troubleshoot this real quick.
About that, we are back. Having a little display resolution trouble here on my side. So what I want everybody to do is make sure you've gone into F5, that you've full screen the demo. And I wasn't able to get down to 1024 by 768, which is really where I'd like to be to help you to be able to see this as easy as you can. So I'm a little bit higher up than that. But if you go to F5, you should be able to see most of the demo, if not all of my window in your screen. What you're looking at here is a company portal page. Now this is a SharePoint Server 2007 default page. This is what's created when you basically install these technologies. I want to stress up front here that what you actually have in your organization will absolutely look differently than this, because IT will customize this based on your needs and on your organization. So what I'm going to do is just point out some of the common areas of the navigation so that you know where to find them, you know how they work. But just know that when you actually look at your own internal portal, it's going to be customized for your own organization. So let's kind of start here at the top. What you'll see across the top is what's called a top link bar. And the neat thing about SharePoint Server 2007 and Windows SharePoint Services is they will only present for you across that top link bar either sites that you already have permission to access or sites that have been targeted to you. So there are certain types of content settings within SharePoint that you could target particular content to particular types of people or particular groups of people. So you will see some sort of top link bar across the top. But what's nice about this is you won't see sites that you don't actually have permission to access. So if it's, rather than click a site just to only find out that it's requiring you to log in as someone different or what have you, or you don't have the right password, it just doesn't even show you those sites. So what you see across that top link bar is either something you already have permission to access or has been targeted to you in some manner. So you can basically just click a link. It will take you to the different sites along that top link bar. Now on the left-hand side, you'll see what's called the quick launch bar. And this basically will drill you down into all of the different sites. And so if I'm sorry, the areas of the site. So if I'm in the marketing site right now, everything you see on the left is somewhere underneath that marketing site. So I can see all my document libraries, my pictures, my lists, discussions. All of this content is part of the marketing site. So from here I can begin to drill down into different areas. So if I wanted to jump directly into a document library, for example, we can just further drill down maybe into a particular folder. We're heading down now into this marketing site. So if you'll notice, just above the word marketing plan here, you'll see these little links that kind of run horizontally. These are what we call breadcrumbs, and breadcrumbs will allow you then to basically jump back up to any place within that hierarchy. So you don't have to worry about getting lost as you drill down within these different sites. It's, think of Hansel and Gretel throwing the breadcrumbs out. You always know your way back to the beginning, so you can use the breadcrumbs to be able to navigate that. What you can also do is leverage this My Links button up here at the top right. If you have a site you're visiting often, you need to get back to it, you can go in here and you can add a site to your My Links area. Now the nice thing about the My Links area is when you put in this site information, so let's just call this one the communications folder. By adding that to My Links, as opposed to my favorites menu in Internet Explorer, these links are going to be available to me no matter what computer that I happen to be logged in from. So once I'm authenticated on the network, I could be razzed in from home, I could be on my work PC, I could be wherever I happen to be. As long as I'm authenticated by the network, these links are going to follow me to where I am. So you can't say the same thing about the favorites area in Internet Explorer. Your favorites are different on your home computer, on your work computer, etc. So you can use this My Links area to really help to stay on top of some of these different sites that you may be navigating to within the SharePoint environment. Let's just use these breadcrumbs here and hop back up to our home page. So we talked about the top link bar across the top. You've got your quick launch bar down the left-hand side, the My Links area. Right next to My Links is what's called My Site. Every person on the SharePoint infrastructure here, every authenticated user can have a My Site. And the way that you create this My Site is you simply click the link that says My Site on the top right of that portal page, and it will take you into a site that's customized for you. So you can see here I'm logged in as Terry Adams. This is Terry Adams' My Site as it would look when it's first created by SharePoint. And what I can do here is begin to come in and customize this site. I can use it to store personal documents. I can use it to store not only documents that are private to me, but those that I want to make available to other people on my team or throughout the organization. I can add different capabilities here, for example, to view my calendar. I can add an Outlook Web Access calendar part to this page so I can track my calendar from here. You'll see an area that says Colleague Tracker. You can add different colleagues or people that you work with here, and it will help to connect you with those people. You'll be able to see who's working on similar projects. It will perform a number of what we call social networking tasks. So it'll help you to identify across the organization people and documents that are relevant to what it is that you're doing. You'll notice this area here that says Get Started with My Site. This is where you'll basically come in and add information about what you're doing, maybe a picture of yourself. You'll be able to customize the page any way that you want. You really can think of this as your own personal site within the company. And the more information that you populate here, the easier it's going to be for people to find you when they go looking through the organization for documents or expertise or particular people within the organization. This is a My Site, and again, to create it, just click My Site. The work will be done on the back end, and you'll be presented with a page that looks very similar to this. You can then begin that process of customization. Now, why is it important to make sure that your My Site is up to date with relevant information about yourself? Well, you can see up here I have a search area, and what I'm going to do is search for the word sales. What the enterprise search functionality does is basically looks across the entire portal and will bubble up information for me relevant to these particular terms. Now, it doesn't have to be documents. It could be people. So if I'm looking for expertise across, maybe I'm looking for somebody in sales to help me out with something, it can help me to find those people. Especially the larger the company, the more difficult it can be to make those types of connections. So look here, we have the results for sales. I can view these by relevance. I can view content by the modified date, so just show me the newest stuff relevant to sales. And if you'll see at the top next to all sites, it says people. If I click on people, it will then show me where the sales term shows up in various people's My Sites. So you'll see here this information is being pulled from the My Site of Vanessa and from George. You can see that they have the word sales in their title or in their description. So that's why it's important to make sure that you've customized that My Site with your relevant information and help to connect the dots throughout the organization. So this is a little bit about the navigation, how you work through this, how you search for information in SharePoint. Let's shift gears now, and let's just talk about creating sites and some of the things that you can do to create a site and customize that site. So let's jump back up to the portal page. You'll see a Site Actions button on the right-hand side. This is where you go if you'd like to create your own SharePoint site under the existing hierarchy. So let's just choose Create Site. And I'm just going to populate this with some basic information. So let's say this is a team site for our product team. And we are a new product development team. Just put in a quick description here. Need to give it a URL. So basically the root will be populated for you. In this case, mine is server 2. And I want this website to be called server2/product. That's how you basically get to this site. If you look down in the template area, you've got a number of templates to choose from divided by their purpose. So if this is a collaborative site, is this a meeting site? So we'll talk about meeting workspaces a little bit later on. There are some enterprise-wide templates for document and record management in here as well, web publishing, and then any number of custom templates that can be uploaded as well. There are a number of templates that are available from Microsoft.com that you can basically take advantage of and upload into SharePoint for different types of disciplines. In this case, what I want to do is a team site. That's available to me on the collaboration site. And if we scroll down, you'll notice you have the opportunity to set permissions for the site, and you can also decide if you want that site linked in the top link bar, and if you want that site listed in the directory. In this case, there are just some default types of divisions and regions available. This will most likely be different for you in your organization based on how your site is structured. But I can list this in the directory, simply hit Create, and SharePoint will take care of the rest for me. The great thing about building these types of sites is you don't have to be a web designer, you don't have to know anything about coding HTML to be able to build yourself a SharePoint site for your team or for yourself or for different documents. Now you can use the SharePoint Designer to take this all to another level, but if you're just a basic user and you just want to get started with it, you don't need to know about web design. Here's a team site. This has got a few predefined what we call web parts. You'll see announcements, calendar, links. These are web parts. That's how we talk about the components of a SharePoint page. And under the Site Actions button, you'll also find a Site Settings page that will allow you to do some things with regards to look and feel of your page. If you'd like to change your title or description, maybe you'd like to add a site theme. This can allow you to customize your site, give it a different look and feel. You'll notice all the different themes that are available. I'll just choose a new one and apply it, and you'll notice it just completely changes the color and scheme of this particular site. So let's go back to the home page for the product team. So you can tell it's got a different look. I was able to do that with just a click. Let's talk about putting some content in here. So I can add announcements for my team site. I'll just click Add New Announcement. And I'm just going to put something very basic here. How about welcome to our new team site. And I'll add a little text in the body, so please feel free to look around. What I want you to notice here is this toolbar. These icons should look very familiar to you. So if you've never used SharePoint before, it's okay. You can format text. If you've used Word, Excel, PowerPoint, if you're familiar with Office text formatting, you can format text right here in SharePoint. So I could select this, for example, italicize it, maybe change the font color, number of different things that you can do using that toolbar. It should look very familiar to you. Click OK, and I've now added that announcement to my site. Same idea applies to things like links. So let's say I needed to add a link to a related site. Just click Add New Link. And let's add a link here to server2/marketing, which is our marketing team. Click OK. And you'll see that link now has been added. So if I need to jump over to the marketing team, I can do it straight from here. Third area to point out for you is calendar. This is where you can track and share team events. So in this case, if I want to add a new event for my team, just click Add New Event, give it some information. So let's just call this the team offsite. And it's going to happen tomorrow. So let's just select tomorrow's date for the start time and for the end time. I can put in a description if I need to. A couple of new things here in version 3.0 is the ability to make this an all-day event and also to make it a recurring event. So you can actually make those two choices right here. We'll talk about meeting workspaces here in just a few minutes. Let's click OK, and you'll notice that that has been added here under my calendar list, so I can see that offsite right there. You can also display this calendar as a traditional calendar view. If you choose to do so, that's certainly something that can be done. I'm going to jump into this calendar and we're going to dig down a little deeper here. You'll see here's the calendar view for SharePoint, so I just kind of drilled down into the calendar link. What's great about this, though, is if you don't want to jump back and forth between SharePoint and your Outlook calendar, under Actions, you'll see the opportunity to connect this calendar to Outlook. So by clicking that, you'll be prompted to confirm that decision in Outlook. So I'll click Yes. And it's now going to map that calendar right here to Outlook. So you'll see it'll show up side by side next to my own calendar. And I can turn it on or off right here on the left-hand side. You'll see a checkbox, Product Team Calendar. Let's go to tomorrow's date. And you'll see up at the top there's that team offsite. So if I want to manage these two side by side, I can do that. You can also drag events from one calendar to the other and move them back and forth between your calendars. They don't necessarily stay synchronized. You want to be careful there. If I took this team offsite, for example, and I wanted to drag it over onto my own calendar, it's easy enough to do that, but should that team offsite be changed over on the SharePoint side, it won't necessarily reflect that on my local calendar. So you just want to be a little bit careful about moving items between and just kind of know what you're getting into there in terms of synchronization. But it's very easy for you to be able to look at these two calendars together and know exactly what's happening for yourself as well as for the organization. Let's go back to the appointment. And I'm going to open up this team offsite appointment, edit this item. I want to talk about this meeting workspace button here. I'm going to check the box for meeting workspace and click OK. What a meeting workspace is a site that is specific to that particular meeting or series of meetings. So if you think about sending agenda items, objectives through email, documents maybe for a meeting, they always seem to change. So you're sending an updated email or an updated request with new information. If you had a meeting workspace for that meeting, you could basically put everything you need out on the site and then just send the link in the meeting request. And so people can come to the site for the latest and greatest information as it relates to that particular meeting or appointment. So you'll notice here it pre-populates that title for me. I can give it a description or change the URL if I need to. I'm just going to click OK and create this workspace. There are 5 meeting workspace templates you can choose from. You'll see them here. I'm just going to take the basic one for the purposes of this demo and just show you here in a couple of clicks how we can create an entirely new site. It's going to live beneath our product team site. It's going to be focused on that team offsite meeting. So you'll see here objectives, agenda, document library if I want to add new documents to this. And I can begin to add attendees to this meeting workspace as well, which would give them permission to be able to attend this particular workspace. I'm not going to dive into each of those. It basically functions the same way as the team site where we added announcements and links. You simply click Add New Item and you enter the information that you need to populate this particular area. But this is a meeting workspace, and I created it from that SharePoint event. Now there's another way you can create a meeting workspace, one that you'll probably find yourself using a little bit more often, and that is back here in Outlook. If you'll create a new meeting request, and let's just find ourselves a time slot on the next business day, which will be tomorrow. And I'm going to make this just a particular slot here. So let's just go from, for example, maybe 12 to 2 o'clock. And I'm going to invite to this meeting Vanessa, George, and Chris. And we're just going to call this our team meeting. And we're going to be meeting in conference room A. So I'm going to use the resources capabilities of Exchange 2007 and Outlook to book that room for me at the same time. And you'll notice a button here called Meeting Workspace. This will open up a task pane, and what you need to do is basically decide where you want to put this particular workspace. So in this case, I'm going to put it off of our product site that we just created. And I can decide what template that I want to use for this particular workspace. I'm going to take the basic and just click Create. Now, Outlook is working with SharePoint to create this meeting workspace for me, and when it's finished, you'll notice that it places a link right here inside the body of the meeting request. So before I send this request, I could go out to the workspace and take a look at it. And this is the team meeting workspace. You can see I could populate all of the information that I need to out here, come back to that request, and just go ahead and send it out. Now when you create a workspace in this manner, everyone on the to line of that meeting request is going to be automatically added as a member of the workspace. So in our first example, I was going to have to manually add people as members. In this example, let me just refresh this, and you'll see here's our attendees populated automatically right from the to line of that email message, of that meeting request. So you can use SharePoint existing events to turn them into meeting workspaces, or you can create one from an Outlook meeting request and have that automatically linked to that request, and everybody has the opportunity to come out, store, and share information. So that's a little bit about a meeting request. Let me go back to our main site, and I want to talk for a minute here about libraries and lists. So a document library is where you're going to store different types of documents, and they can be any kind of Office file. It can be Word, Excel, PowerPoint. We just kind of generally refer to them as documents in this example. A document library exists on a team site by default. You'll see it here called Shared Documents. And if you come into that document library, you can then upload any number of documents. So let's click the Upload button. You can browse for these one at a time and just select what it is that you want to bring in. Or you can upload multiple files at once. So if you know that there are a number of different files that you want to bring in at one time to this particular site, let's just drill down in here and select those files. So I'm going to take a Word doc, a PowerPoint document, and an Excel file. We'll just select the three that we want, click OK, and upload them directly. And now here they are in our document library. So we can basically work on these from here, we can view them, we can edit them, and one big advantage here to having this information in this particular format is the ability to come in and basically hover over one of these documents, and you'll see the option here to check this document out. If you check a file out, it means you've reserved the editing rights to that document for yourself. And so if someone else was to come out and attempt to open this file, they could open it as a read-only file and look at it, but they wouldn't be able to save any edits back because you actually have it checked out. You'll see the little arrow that appeared here at the bottom right of that icon. That indicates that that file is actually now checked out. Another thing you can do is take your Actions button and connect this document library to Outlook. Now, why would you want to do this? Well, What this does, it allows you to be able to, first of all, look at and manage these documents right here from within the same place you're probably doing a lot of other work. So you're in email, you need to jump in and look at a document. You can stay in the same interface to be able to do this. But it also allows you to take these documents offline. So these are stored locally in a separate folder, and you can basically look at these offline, but they're also connected to that server version. So changes that you make can be uploaded and synchronized right back to the server. So you're still really managing only one version of the document. You can see here I connected this to Outlook, and here is my business plan, document, PowerPoint, Excel sheet, those 3 files that we just uploaded to that site. You can see them right here. If I was to open up one of these, so let's just open up this file right here. I'm opening it just like I would an email message, but you're going to see it come up actually in Word. So I'm opening it basically in the native file format. So I can open up this Word document, and we could then begin to make different changes to it, and when we were finished, we could synchronize it back over to the SharePoint site. So here's the Word document. Let's just do a couple of quick things here. Let's use the new Styles Gallery in Word 2007 and maybe mark this document up here in a couple of different ways. If I click to expand the Style Gallery, you'll see all the style options. Let's add a title style to this first line, and let's bring in the subtitle style for the second line. You could even maybe add the first heading to the top line of the document. So we can just make a few changes here. Really what I want you to see is if I save this and I close out of it, I'll be given the opportunity then to either check it back in or keep it checked out and continue to work on it. So I updated some styles, just given some comments so that it'll reflect on the SharePoint side exactly what was done in this particular document. So let's just log that in quickly and save this right back out to the SharePoint site. Now, a couple of things to keep in mind here. When you are connecting documents to Outlook, it's a good idea to make sure that you've gone out, and if you're going to go offline with something, go ahead and check it out from the SharePoint site first. That way when you open it up from Outlook, you know it's already checked out, you can work on it, and you can synchronize when you get back. You can still edit items offline in Outlook, but if you haven't checked them out from the server first, then there may be other changes happening at the same time, and you may bump into each other and have to use some of the tools within Word to reconcile those differences. You can kind of save yourself that process by checking it out on SharePoint first, then taking it offline in Outlook and working on it and then synchronizing it when you get back. That's a little bit about a document library. Let's talk about a couple of other elements here. If you go into the site settings area, we can create additional lists and libraries for these different team sites. Notice here's a picture library. Picture library basically allows you to create a site where you can, or a library where you can store images. So if you had images or pictures of your team or whoever you needed to manage, you can bring those up into a picture library. Let me show you a slide library. Slide library actually allows you to upload and store and share different types of PowerPoint slides. So let's just call this business plan, and we'll create it. With a slide library, you can upload not really files. What you're doing here is you're publishing slides. If you've ever created a slide presentation and someone else has created a presentation and you find that a lot of the slides are the same, or you go hunting around for, you've seen the same slide in 5 different presentations and you want to grab that slide, but there's not an easy place to really get to it, you have a good opportunity here to be able to leverage this information, put it in one place, and people can then come out and use these slides in multiple presentations and really repurpose this information. What I want to do here is basically take, I'm going to basically take these slides here and publish them out. So these are some slides that I'm working on. You can basically take them, publish them up into the different libraries, and be able to access these as a thumbnail from up on the SharePoint site. So you can see at the bottom right-hand side, PowerPoint is actually publishing those slides out to this particular slide library. Now, admittedly, these aren't the most exciting slides for you to look at once they actually get posted up here, but I wanted you just to get the sense of how this functions. Let me refresh this. So you can see now the different slides have come up. Let me just click on one of these to take you into a thumbnail, and you can see how this slide looks. Now, if I was a person building a deck and I wanted to leverage this slide, I could come out to the slide library and simply copy this slide down to a presentation, either a new one or an existing presentation, and keep the source format if I need to. I can also link this slide. So if that slide changes on the library, I can be notified and I can synchronize those changes to my local presentation. So you can see I brought this directly down into PowerPoint. From your new slide drop-down, you'll see a reuse slides option. That'll bring up a task pane on the side of PowerPoint where you can actually open a slide library directly from PowerPoint. So let me just select one of these and open it up here in the actual task pane. So the slides that you see here are actually stored in a SharePoint slide library. So if I found one of these that I liked, I could just simply click it and bring it straight on into my presentation. You'll notice that the formatting adjusts to the current Slide Master template, though I could decide to keep the original formatting as well. If later on I had a new deck and I wanted to share these slides, you'll see a Publish Slides option here at the bottom, where I could then save the presentation and push those slides right back up to another slide library, just like we did through SharePoint a few minutes ago. So slide libraries are a great way to be able to share and repurpose this different type of content throughout the organization. Let's talk about something called a document workspace. Similar to a meeting workspace, which is all about a particular meeting, you can use a document workspace. It's a different type of site that is really about collaborating on a particular document or particular project. So I've got my team site where I've got all my team documents shared, but maybe there's a document in here like this business plan that I really need to get a little bit more granular on. So I'm going to basically send this document to a document workspace. What that does, it allows me to take that document and actually build a sub-site around it where my teammates and I can come together and we can specifically focus on this document. We can work on tasks that are related to this document. We can have separate announcements for this project or links, and when we're done, we can then merge the changes from this workspace document back into the original file. What you're seeing here is a document workspace, and what I just showed you was one of the ways that you can create a document workspace. Let me show you a couple of other ways that you can do this. You'll notice the look and feel here is pretty similar to what we've seen so far. So I created it from an existing file in a document library. Let's go back over to Outlook, and what I'd like to do here is go into a new mail message. And let's just send this mail message to the same folks, Vanessa, George, and Chris. In the subject, I'm going to type business plan. And what I want to do here is attach a file. So let's attach this file here. And right here on this diagonal button, let me maximize this so you can see it a little bit better. There's a little diagonal button on this particular include group of the ribbon. That will open up an attachment options task pane. If I click Shared Attachments, I can type a URL for this. So let's put this again on server2/product. Notice the link that's placed by Outlook in this message. When I click Send on this email message, what we've just done is create a document workspace. And the people that were on the to line are automatically added as members to that document workspace. And I'll get a confirmation email here in a few minutes that will give me basically the link of where that was created. There it is. And if I click on this link, you will see the document workspace that was created for this particular attachment. So that's the second way you can create a document workspace. You'll notice it looks very similar to the one we just created. There's a third way that you can create a document workspace, and that's directly from within your actual existing Office 2007 document. So let me open up this document here, FY07 Sales Report. It's an Excel file. And from the Excel file, there's a new menu in the Office 2007 applications. It is a Publish menu. And if I click File, Publish, Create Document Workspace. It will open up for me a task pane on the right-hand side where I can then simply decide where I want to create the site and go ahead and create it. I'm doing this directly from where I'm working right now, so I don't have to stop, go out to SharePoint, go to Outlook. I can do it directly from where I'm working right now. So you'll see a task pane come up here on the right-hand side where we have the ability, for example, to maybe add members to the site from here. So I could add Vanessa and George and Chris, give them a particular type of control. And I could send them an email invitation if I choose to do so. That would give them the link out to that site. You can also see tasks. So let's add a new task here. Let's call this task, let's just say we need to create an Excel table. And who owns it? Terry owns it, and it's due tomorrow by 5 p.m. Notice now I have a task here. This task pane that you're seeing is basically a way for you to look at the contents of your workspace within the application that you're working in. So you'll notice if I go back out to SharePoint, here's that Excel table task I just created. Here's the members that I just added. All of that information is pulling through the different tabs of the task pane so that you can stay focused on your work. You don't have to continually jump back and forth to these different areas to be able to get your work accomplished. Let's go into this task list. Let me show you a couple of other things here. If you'd like to take a task list that you've created on a document workspace and connect it over to Outlook, you can. Click yes. It'll bring that task into Outlook. So you'll see Create Excel Table. That's now here. I can manage it in Outlook. On my calendar, if I was to click on tomorrow's date, you will see that task list will be synchronized. It takes a couple minutes for it to happen. It'll show up here on my task list of my calendar. And you'll also see on a to-do bar, Create Excel Table listed right here. So you can manage all of those tasks on your SharePoint site right here within Outlook. One other thing I want to show you very quickly. If we go back over to our main site, our workspace, we have something in SharePoint called Workflows. You'll see that option here under the drop-down menu. What a workflow does is it allows you to route documents for different purposes through the organization. What you're seeing here is two workflows that come with SharePoint Server 2007. I'm going to click the Approval workflow, and I'm going to route this particular document for approval. Think about chasing people down the hall when you need something to get approved. Think about sending a document out through email to 10 people. You need it to be approved. How many times that document is being duplicated in that process, and the time that you spend having to merge those items back together. A workflow can help you to get control over these types of business processes by automatically routing these documents to the appropriate people in the order that they need to go in and enabling them to quickly and easily weigh in on these different types of decisions. Let's just say that I wanted this document to route to Vanessa and George and Chris. And I'm just going to say, please approve. I'm going to give them basically a week to make these decisions. And what I want you to notice here is when I start this workflow, this document is now basically being routed automatically to the first person in line in this particular workflow. So this one's going to go straight over to Vanessa. Now at any time I can track the progress of this document and come back and see exactly where it is in the process. While this workflow is starting up, let's go back. Actually, oh, there it finished. Let's drill down again into that workflow, and let me show you how you can track the progress. If you go back over to Workflows, you'll see the running workflow, the approval workflow. If I choose In Progress, I can actually see where the document is right now. So it'll tell me I initiated the workflow and that the task was created for Vanessa. What that means is that task is sitting in her inbox ready for her to complete. Let me show you what this would look like on a different workflow. So just to be clear, this is a workflow that I was initiated by another person and sent to me. This would be the collect feedback workflow, but this will give you a sense of what it looks like to the other person. Here's a workflow that I was invited to participate in, You can see I get the email that notifies me that task was assigned to me. This is the same thing Vanessa would be seeing right now on the other workflow we just started. I could open the file, I could review it, and when I'm ready I can choose at the top of the reading pane, edit this task. What this will do is open up a dialog box that will give me an opportunity to weigh in with my feedback and then submit that feedback. When I submit the feedback, it's automatically then kicked off to the next person in line, and they're able to actually work on that material, and it just moves on down the line until that workflow is then completed. So you can think about this as a way to really automate a lot of the processes that you're participating in. Your experience on this will be much faster than what you've seen in the demonstration today. With virtual PCs, it tends to bog a little bit, considering that I'm running basically 4 computers on one laptop right now. So you'll see this improve quite a bit. But I'm just going to type here, looks good, and then I'll send the feedback. You notice I could reassign this to someone else or request her to change something. So that's my part in the workflow as a participant. It now rolls on to the next person in line. Let's jump back out to our presentation. And let's just wrap some of this up here. What did we talk about? We spent the first few minutes of the demo talking about getting to know your SharePoint portal, how you navigate the portal, get into your My Links and your My Site areas, do your enterprise search functionality. We created a team site. We created some meeting workspaces, some document workspaces. We customized those with different announcements, links, documents, and we were able to work with those shared documents and create those workspaces from Outlook, from SharePoint, and right from within our own Office applications. We also talked a little bit about connecting items to Outlook in terms of Office integration and the workflow processes in terms of routing this content through the organization. I know this was a lot to digest today. I appreciate the time. I will give you a couple of resources here to think about. This is a book. It's called So That's How. It's from Microsoft Press, and I actually co-authored this with another one of our presenters. And you will find in here a lot of tips and tricks for the other Office applications, but you'll also see a good bit of information on SharePoint and on how you work through these different processes, how you can collaborate and build these sites. So you'll find a lot of good information in there, not only about Office, but also about SharePoint. Let me give you a few other resources here, and you can get this at Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Basically, wherever you buy books, you'll find a copy of So That's How. Here's some more information for you. If you'd like to attend our additional webcast, we do have another one on SharePoint coming up in a few months. We'll be a little bit deeper dive than what we saw today. We have webcasts going on all the time for Office, Microsoft.com/great-tips. Office.Microsoft.com is our Office online site. A lot of great resources for you there. And if you'd like to register for additional webcasts, you can also find them through the link here at the bottom. What I'd like to do is turn it back to Tracy quickly. She's going to walk you through the Q&A process. I'll take as many as I can on the phone. I know we're tight on time due to some of our technical difficulties earlier, but I promise to stay in the room here until at least that your questions have been answered over the phone or through the queue. So Tracy?
Excellent. Thanks, Evan. I do want to remind everybody that for more information, they can print a PDF of today's session. To do that, you just want to go to the File menu in your upper navigation bar. Now is a good time to submit your questions into the Q&A panel. You just want to type them in and hit that Ask button. Also, I'm going to be posting a survey here in just a minute. If you would all please take a moment to fill that out before you log off. We really do appreciate your feedback. Now, as a reminder for upcoming and previously recorded webcasts, you can visit Microsoft.com/webcasts. Now you can go here to access this webcast, which will be available for download in about 24 hours. Now if you have any webcast content ideas, something out there you want to see and you haven't yet, we'd love to hear from you. Take note of this link here. And for anybody who's interested in receiving a free 14-day trial of Microsoft Office Live Meeting, you'll want to visit Microsoft.com/presentlive. And here is the survey from our session today. Please follow the links provided to complete today's webcast evaluation. And Evan, it certainly does look like you have some questions waiting.
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. I'll try to take as many of these as I can. If I don't get to you, please stay with me, and I will get into the queue. I might have to research a couple of these and get you at least a link where you can go. First one, is SharePoint Designer included with Windows 2003, Server 2003? SharePoint Designer is a standalone product. It's a desktop product. You can think about it like you would have thought about Front Page. It is definitely standalone. So in terms of licensing, again, Windows SharePoint Services is part of Windows Server 2003, so that covers you there. Office SharePoint Server 2007 is a separate product, and Office SharePoint Designer is a separate product. What is the default URL for SharePoint after deployment? That is going to depend entirely on IT and on what they decide it should be. I had Server 2 today, but that's just because when we built this demo, we just wanted an easy name to use. So it will be basically whatever IT determines during that deployment process. And that's why I mentioned there are certain things that you'll see today that will definitely be different in your experience. It's just a matter of this being such customizable solutions. Can you share team workspaces with external clients? You really can't. Well, I shouldn't say you can't. You can deploy SharePoint as an extranet product. So if you want to have it as an extranet solution and have external partners be able to come out and take a look at this information, you can also deploy it as an internet product. So if you want it to be completely public facing. That said, those two deployments are really quite separate from an intranet deployment where you actually have internal people using the product. So yeah, you could make a SharePoint environment available publicly, but you can't really tie the two together with your internal deployment. So if you had an extranet set up for customers, you'd probably also end up giving your internal people the password for the extranet so that everybody could just kind of be outside the wall and working in that particular site. Functionality differences between WSS and SharePoint Server. This is a hard discussion. Really kind of the line gets blurry when you deploy these products. The best way I can think about it is, think about having a cake. You've got flour and eggs and sugar and all the ingredients of that cake. That's really your foundation. That's your platform, and that's what WSS is providing. It's giving you basic ingredients to be able to do this functionality. SharePoint comes in basically and helps you to bake a cake. And so workflow is a good example. The foundation for the workflow is in WSS. You can go in and build a workflow, but you have to do it manually and construct that workflow basically from the ground up. SharePoint Server comes in and says, okay, I'm going to give you an approval workflow and a collect feedback workflow just out of the box. Using all those ingredients there, I'm just going to bake it together, and you can use these two right away and just get started with it. Document libraries are part of WSS, but slide libraries, like I showed you today, are an extension that SharePoint Server provides. Most of what you saw today was really a WSS component, just in terms of creating your sites, the connecting to Outlook capabilities. The portal is certainly a SharePoint Server aspect. The My Site and the portal navigation, that's in the enterprise search, that's a SharePoint Server function. So it does get a little bit confusing. The best thing to do is go out to office.microsoft.com, and there are some good FAQs out there if you drill down into the product sections as to how these relate to each other and what you can expect from them. So I've got a question about, is Windows 2007 required for the functionality we're seeing? Let me see if I can clarify this. Windows Server 2003 is all the server functionality you're seeing today. That's what everything's living on, is Windows Server 2003. My client was Windows Vista. However, it was running in a VPC, so you don't see a lot of the interface capabilities of Vista. It functions a little bit differently in a VPC. So again, your real-life scenario may be different in terms of what your desktop is. But from a server perspective, it was Windows Server 2003 and Office SharePoint Server 2007. Let's see here. Will workflow and messaging work without Exchange? Good question. I'm not 100% on the Outlook capabilities of it. The workflow is a SharePoint function, so creating that workflow and having that accessible through SharePoint is something you don't need necessarily Outlook to do. If I didn't have Outlook and Exchange routing that task to me, I would have to go out to the SharePoint site and dive in and approve it from there, from inside SharePoint, and not from within Outlook. So you'd lose maybe some ease of use capability if you didn't have Outlook and Exchange. But you can still go in and participate in a workflow. You just have to go into SharePoint and do it from the browser. How to find out what version of SharePoint your company is using. Best thing to do is probably just ask IT There's two basic versions of SharePoint services that you're likely to see. Windows SharePoint Services 2.0 and 3.0. 2.0 came out in the Office 2003 timeframe, and 3.0 came out in the Office 2007 timeframe. There are slight differences in the UI, enough to where you can tell if you're looking at 3.0 that it is different than 2.0, but not drastically different in terms of clicking around and having to navigate the different sites. There's an older version called SharePoint Team Services way back from Office XP, but I doubt that you're running that particular version. If you are, I'm sure there are still some resources out on Microsoft.com, but I think most of the implementations of that were at least rolled to Windows SharePoint Services 2.0. And again, that upgrade is a server-based upgrade. It's free. It's part of their license there, so it just simply has to be done on the IT side, but it's not something they have to pay for to move to 3.0. Okay. I've got a few more questions here, but I think I need to take them offline. So if you have a question in the queue still, please sit tight for me. I will get to you in the order that I can. Tracy, if you'll wrap us up, thanks everybody, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next webcast.
Great, and with that I do want to extend a very special thank you to you, Evan, for your presentation today and for answering the questions that we had come through the queue. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to conclude today's session. I want to thank you again for joining us. You may now disconnect from the audio portion of today's presentation.